Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Uh, the United States surpassed 4 million COVID-19 cases recently. We know the growing number of cases are in part due to the rush to reopen certain states without proper safeguards and the failure to ensure mask wearing and social distancing. And it's hard to comprehend that months after the virus's initial outbreak in the United States, we're seeing hotspots all over the country. And we continue to have the same problems procuring items like testing swabs and masks. The reality is that we've had months to enhance our stockpile. We wouldn't even be here and having this hearing if the administration invoked the full power of the Defense Production Act, federal purchasing and coordination to ensure all of our communities have the basic materials to combat the virus. And now flu season is about 2 months away, and I have severe doubts that we will be ready to deal with this ongoing pandemic during the annual flu cycle if real leadership doesn't emerge to coordinate our supply chain. Now, on July the 2nd, Rear Admiral John Polovchek testified to the House Select Committee on the Coronavirus Crisis about the federal government's effort for procurement and distribution of critical medical equipment and supplies. He stated that the Supply Chain Stabilization Task Force is working through over 350 leads to match American businesses who have excess raw materials, workforce, or factory production capacities combined with a drive to support to the national response effort. He also said task force members were working to facilitate partnerships to pair companies that offer their excess factory capacity, workforce, access to their raw material supply chain with manufacturers who produce PPE and medical supply equipment. So my question here, Ms. Correa, would you agree that having a nationwide system that could provide an accurate and real-time assessment of U.S. manufacturing capability and inventories could minimize potential disruptions in the domestic supply chain and help the task force in their efforts?
Sir, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question because you kind of broke up a little bit? Apologize.
Somebody interfered. Would you agree that having a nationwide system that could provide an accurate and real-time assessment of U.S. manufacturers' capabilities and inventories could minimize potential disruptions in the domestic supply chain and help the task force in their efforts?
Sir, thank you for the question. Yes, in my professional capacity, I would agree that anytime we have a system that enables us to more accurately vet and identify supplies, it certainly will always help.
Thank you. And as a chief procurement officer, would having a national view of the supply chain help us understand whether we need manufacturers to retool in key areas to meet the need of urgent products such as PPE and other medical supplies?
Certainly, anytime that we have insight into the capacities and the capabilities of our industry, certainly it'll always make our purchasing processes much better and much more accurate.
Well, I appreciate your responses because that's exactly why I filed a National Supply Chain Database Amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, and will be introducing standalone legislation, which establishes a national chain database to the National Institute of Standards and Technologies Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which would give us that opportunity. Let me ask Mr. Francis and Mr. Overacker. Even before the pandemic, we all knew that government agencies and the private sector needed to be doing more to stop the flow of counterfeit goods into our country. The rise of e-commerce has brought with it a flood of counterfeits and posed new challenges to our traditional ways of tackling this problem. And Mr. Francis, since the pandemic started, has the IPR Center worked with e-commerce platforms to encourage upfront screening of vendors, identify verification, or ways to more quickly remove counterfeit items from e-commerce sites?
Thank you, Senator. We have been working with the e-commerce platforms since 2017, at least, on some data sharing pilot initiatives. Since the pandemic, we know there's been a significant increase in cooperation, collaboration as it relates to data sharing with the marketplaces. I'm not certain about the pre-vetting. I know some marketplaces do a better job than others. However, I'm optimistic. It's a voluntary-based data sharing pilot program with the marketplaces. But I do believe that, the pre-vetting on, with those marketplaces would definitely be beneficial in stopping these bad actors and organizations from exploiting the American public.
And finally, would appropriating emergency funds to the IPR Center to tackle fake test kits, medicine, and PPE be useful at this stage?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Since the National IPR Center has been codified, there have not been any appropriated funds. Clearly, we have a daunting task, not only with the COVID-19 pandemic, but dealing with digital piracy, all these fraudulent counterfeit goods that are entering the marketplaces on a daily basis. Our priorities are national security, economic security, and the health and safety of the American public, and we would greatly appreciate appropriated funds. Thank you.
Senator